welcome to A1 Storyteller, where we bring you the most gripping, heart-stopping, and unforgettable tales of justice, courage, and redemption. Tonight's story is not just about a punch, it's about a reckoning. It's about a moment when the line between right and wrong is shattered, and those who once abused their power face consequences they never saw coming. Imagine this: a simple grocery store, a devoted nun living a life of peace and service, a teenager just trying to make it through the day. And then a man with a badge, drunk on power, arrogance, and cruelty. He thinks he can do whatever he wants, that he can strike the innocent and walk away untouched. But not this time, because what happens next will send shockwaves through an entire community. The moment his fist collides with that nun's face, he sets off a chain of events that will lead to his downfall, his exposure, and the destruction of a corrupt system that has protected him for far too long. Stay with us, because by the time this story ends, you will witness the power of justice, the strength of redemption, and a lesson that no one will ever forget. Now, let's begin. A store, a struggle, a shocking blow. Sister Mary Eloise had always believed in the goodness of humanity. Even in a world marred by injustice, she held on to faith that love, kindness, and justice would prevail. But standing in that grocery store on a chilly autumn afternoon, she was about to witness the ugliest side of human nature. She had only come in for a few items: bags of rice, canned beans, milk, and bread, for the church's outreach program. She walked down the aisles methodically, her mind racing with thoughts of the upcoming charity event. Would there be enough volunteers this weekend? Had they secured enough winter coats for the homeless? As she neared the checkout lanes, she heard it, a commotion near the store entrance, a scuffle, a voice, young, frightened. "Man, let me go, I ain't do nothing." Sister Mary turned her head, her heart immediately sinking. A teenage boy, no older than 15, was pressed against the glass doors by a white police officer. The officer was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a stiff jaw, his uniform crisp, his badge gleaming under the store's fluorescent lights. His name tag read Grant. Grant had the boy's arm twisted behind his back, his fingers digging into the fabric of the boy's hoodie. The teenager's face was contorted in pain, his eyes darting around wildly, looking for help. "I said, shut your mouth," Grant growled. Mary's grip tightened on the shopping cart. The scene was painfully familiar. Another black boy being treated like a criminal before he was even given a chance to explain. She stepped forward. "Excuse me, officer," she said, her voice calm but firm. "What's going on here?" Grant barely acknowledged her. "None of your business, lady. Move along." Mary didn't move. "This boy, what is he being accused of?" The officer yanked the boy's arm higher, making him yelp. "Caught him near the candy aisle, stealing most likely." Mary turned to the cashier, a nervous young woman who had been ringing up customers. "Is that true? Did you see him steal anything?" The cashier swallowed, shifting her weight uncomfortably. I don't know. I didn't see him take anything." The teenage boy's lip trembled. "I didn't steal, I swear. I was just looking. I had my own money." Mary felt a swell of anger, but she kept her voice even. "Officer, you have no proof he did anything wrong. If the store employees didn't witness a crime, then—" Grant's eyes flashed with irritation. He turned his full attention to her now, stepping closer. He towered over her, his posture aggressive. "You think you know how to do my job, lady?" Mary didn't flinch. "I think a boy is being unfairly treated, and I can't stand by and watch." Grant let out a short, cruel laugh. "You nuns, you walk around thinking you're holier than thou, thinking you can meddle in things that don't concern you." Mary met his gaze unwavering. "Defending the innocent always concerns me." The store had fallen completely silent now. Shoppers had stopped pushing their carts. Some whispered to each other, others had their phones out recording the scene. Grant's nostrils flared. His hand twitched, and then, without warning, his fist shot out. The blow landed hard against Sister Mary's face. A sickening crack echoed through the store. The force sent her stumbling backward, her shopping cart tipped over, cans of food clattering to the floor. Pain exploded through her cheek, sharp and blinding. Her vision blurred for a moment. Gasps filled the air. Someone screamed. "You just hit a nun!" The teenage boy let out a horrified cry. "What is wrong with you, man?" Grant rolled his shoulders, completely unbothered. "She got in my way." Mary lay on the cold tile, pain radiating through her face. Blood pooled in her mouth, the metallic taste sharp against her tongue. But she didn't cry out. Instead, she took a slow, measured breath and began to push herself up. She would not break. She pressed a palm to the floor and steadied herself. As she stood, the room seemed to shift. The looks on the faces around her had changed. No longer were people merely bystanders. They were witnesses. Witnesses to something undeniably wrong. And that's when the store doors burst open. Everything was about to change. The moment the store doors burst open, a wave of tension rippled through the room. Every eye turned toward the entrance. A man in a tailored black suit strode inside, his expression sharp and unreadable. His polished shoes barely made a sound on the linoleum floor, but his presence carried weight. He was tall, commanding, with graying temples that only added to his air of authority. And behind him, walking with purpose, was Father James, the head priest of St. Benedict's Church. His usually calm and compassionate face was etched with fury. The suited man's eyes scanned the store, absorbing everything in an instant. The overturned shopping cart, the nun with a swelling bruise on her cheek, the terrified teenage boy, and the smug police officer standing over them. He stopped, his gaze locking onto the cop. "Officer Grant," he said, his voice smooth but carrying a dangerous undertone. Grant frowned. "Who the hell are you?" The man smirked, his arms crossing over his chest. "I'm Samuel Carter, the district attorney." A murmur ran through the crowd. Phones were still recording, some people whispering in disbelief. Grant's posture stiffened slightly, but he quickly covered it up with a scoff. "I don't care who you are. This has nothing to do with you." The DA's smirk didn't waver. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a sleek phone. With a few taps, he turned the screen toward Grant. A live video feed played. The entire altercation had been streamed online. Thousands of comments were pouring in. "He just punched a nun? This is sick. Fire him now. Arrest that cop. If she was white, would he have hit her?" Grant's face paled for the first time. His arrogance faltered, just a little. Father James stepped forward now, his voice eerily calm. "Officer, you have just assaulted a woman of God in front of dozens of witnesses, in a public place, while being recorded." Grant straightened his shoulders. "She was interfering in police business." Carter chuckled coldly. "Police business?" His voice dropped to a razor-sharp whisper. "I don't see an arrest. I don't see a crime. All I see is an unarmed woman, a nun, being punched in the face." A wave of agreement swept through the crowd. "Yeah, fire him, put him in cuffs." Grant's fingers twitched at his side. "This is ridiculous. She should have backed off. I was handling a criminal." The teenage boy flinched at the word. Sister Mary, still standing with quiet strength, took a step forward. "He is not a criminal," she said clearly, her voice unwavering despite the pain. "He is a child, and you abused your authority." Carter's smirk vanished. His face turned to stone. "Officer Grant, you're under arrest." Grant let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, please. You think I'm going to let you—" But before he could finish his sentence, two uniformed officers stepped forward. They weren't with him. They were with Internal Affairs. "Turn around, Grant," one of them ordered. Grant's head snapped toward them, his face twisting in disbelief. "What?" "You're kidding." The IA officer didn't flinch. "We've been watching you for months, Grant. This just sealed it." A hush fell over the room. Grant's jaw clenched. His eyes darted around, looking for support, but there was none. His fellow officers weren't backing him. The store employees weren't defending him. The people weren't on his side. And worst of all, the cameras were still rolling. The IA officer took a step closer. Badge, gun, now. A muscle in Grant's jaw ticked. His fingers curled into fists, but he wasn't stupid enough to resist. Slowly, he unclipped his badge and slammed it onto the counter. The gun came next. His movements were jerky, seething with barely contained rage. Then the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. The moment it happened, the store erupted into applause. Some people cheered, others simply exhaled in relief. But no one, not a single person, protested his arrest. Grant's face was burning red, his humiliation visible for all to see. "This is a joke," he muttered. "I'm the real cop here." The IA officer didn't react. "Let's go." As they dragged Grant toward the exit, someone from the crowd yelled, "You thought you were untouchable, huh?" Another added, "How does it feel to be powerless now?" Grant didn't answer. He was too busy staring at Sister Mary, his final glimpse of her before he disappeared through the doors. And she simply stood tall, unbroken, unshaken, victorious. As the doors swung shut behind him, a deep exhale ran through the room. People turned to Sister Mary. Some asked if she was okay, others thanked her. Even strangers patted her shoulder in admiration. Father James placed a gentle hand on her arm. "Sister, you are one of the bravest souls I have ever met." Mary offered a small smile, though her cheek still throbbed. "I only did what was right." The teenage boy, who had been the original target of all this, stepped closer now, his expression still a mix of awe and disbelief. You really stood up for me," he murmured. Mary met his gaze. "You deserve to be stood up for." Tears shimmered in his eyes, but he blinked them away quickly. He nodded. "Thank you." The DA checked his phone, shaking his head in amazement. "This video is already viral." He turned to Sister Mary. "You may have just changed the course of police reform in this city." Mary didn't care about virality. She cared about justice. And today, justice had been served. The reckoning had come. The corrupt had fallen. And the people? They would never forget. The air outside the store was thick with tension, even as the corrupt Officer Grant was hauled away in handcuffs. The echoes of the cheering crowd still lingered in the aisles, a powerful reminder that injustice had been witnessed and punished. But for Sister Mary, the fight wasn't over. As she stood near the checkout counter, still steady despite the bruises forming on her face, she could feel the weight of what had just transpired. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from adrenaline. Father James was beside her, his face lined with concern. "Mary, you need to see a doctor. That man hit you hard." She shook her head gently. "There are people who need help more than I do." The teenage boy, Jamal, was still there, shifting uncomfortably as store employees hovered nearby. Despite everything, he looked hesitant, as though expecting someone to tell him to leave. Mary turned toward him. "Where are your parents, Jamal?" The boy swallowed, looking down. "My mom's working double shifts, my dad's gone." A familiar ache settled in Mary's chest. So many young black boys were growing up without protection, without guidance. And yet, when they tried to navigate the world, they were treated as criminals before they even had a chance. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small business card. "This is the number for St. Benedict's Church. If you ever need a safe place, food, or even just someone to talk to, call." Jamal hesitated before taking it. He read it over, then met her eyes. "You really mean that?" Mary's expression softened. "I wouldn't say it if I didn't." For a long moment, Jamal said nothing. Then he slowly nodded. "I'll think about it." It wasn't a promise, but it was something. A corrupt system exposed. By the time Mary and Father James left the store, the scene outside was explosive. News vans were already parked in front. Reporters scrambled to capture footage of Officer Grant being shoved into the back of a squad car. Protesters had gathered, some holding up signs, others shouting for justice. Mary and James barely made it to their car before a journalist spotted them. "Sister Mary," the woman called out, microphone in hand. "Can we get a statement?" Mary hesitated. She had never sought attention for doing what was right, but she knew this was bigger than her. She turned toward the camera. "What happened today is not new," she said firmly. "It happens every day in every city to innocent people who are powerless against corrupt authorities. But today, we fought back." The reporter leaned in. "And do you believe justice has been served?" Mary's lips pressed together for a moment. Then she exhaled. "Justice isn't just about arresting one bad cop," she said. "It's about changing the system that lets men like him thrive for years without consequences. This is only the beginning. The journalist nodded, scribbling notes furiously. One last question. What would you say to Officer Grant if you had the chance? Mary's jaw tightened. She took a slow breath. Then she looked directly into the camera. I would say, I forgive you. A stunned silence fell over the reporters. Father James turned his head toward her, his eyes slightly wide. The protesters stopped shouting, listening. Even some of the cops, those who had stood silent for too long, looked surprised. But Mary wasn't done. I forgive you, she repeated, not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to let your hatred poison me. She turned her gaze toward the people watching. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It does not mean excusing. We must hold those in power accountable. We must demand better. We must never stop fighting for justice. A deep silence followed. Then the crowd erupted. People cheered. Some clapped. Others simply nodded, their eyes shining with understanding. The journalist swallowed hard, clearly moved. Thank you, Sister Mary. Mary only gave a small nod before turning away. Her mission wasn't over. A final reckoning, the fallout from that day was swift and brutal. By morning, Officer Grant's name was plastered across every news station in the country. Footage of him punching a nun was replayed on endless loops, sparking national outrage. But the real shock came when more victims came forward. Women, men, young boys, all of them had been mistreated, beaten, or falsely arrested by Grant. Some had filed complaints that were buried. Others had never spoken up, fearing retaliation. Now, with the world watching, they were finally heard. The department had no choice. Grant was not only fired but charged with assault, misconduct, and abuse of power, and he wasn't the only one. Internal Affairs launched an investigation into several officers who had covered for him. The entire department faced scrutiny. Policies were re-examined. Training was changed. It was the beginning of a long, overdue reckoning. Redemption. 1 week later, Jamal showed up at St. Benedict's Church. He stood outside for nearly 10 minutes, shuffling his feet, looking unsure, but eventually he stepped inside. Mary was there, speaking with volunteers. When she turned and saw him, a slow smile spread across her bruised but unshaken face. You came, she said softly. Jamal shifted. Yeah, thought I'd see what this place was about. Mary gestured toward the long tables filled with warm food, clean clothes, and blankets. Would you like to help us serve? For a moment, Jamal hesitated. Then he exhaled and nodded. Yeah, I'd like that. As he walked inside, Father James gave Mary a knowing look. You really believe people can change? Mary smiled. Not all of them, but some. She turned back to watch Jamal, a boy who had been judged too soon, now given a second chance. And as she did, she knew this was justice, this was redemption. And the fight for both was only beginning. Outro. A one-storyteller. As the dust settled, the world had witnessed a battle for justice, and a victory that no one could ignore. A corrupt cop, once untouchable, had been exposed, humiliated, and forced to face the consequences of his actions. But this wasn't just about one man. It was about a system that had failed too many for too long. Sister Mary stood strong. She did not back down. She did not let hatred consume her, and in the end, her strength changed lives. Jamal found a path he never expected, stepping away from the darkness and into a future filled with hope. A community that had been divided came together in unity, demanding change, and getting it. Because justice is not given, it is taken, it is fought for, and it is won. But this story is more than just a tale of justice. It's a call to action. How many more Sister Marys are out there? How many more Jamals? How many people face injustice every single day, waiting for someone to stand up and say, enough is enough? The fight doesn't end here. It continues. And that's why A1 Storyteller will always bring you the stories that matter. The stories that shake the world. The stories that remind us of the power we all hold. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it made you feel anything at all, then don't let it stop here. Like, share, and subscribe to A1 Storyteller. Let's make sure stories like this are never forgotten. Because in the end, justice is not just a story.